So a lot of boards ask, why not just use QuickBooks for their HOA or condo accounting? I mean, it's literally an accounting platform, so it should be perfect, right? Yes, to some degree that's true. QuickBooks can tell you where your dollars are going, but here's the problem. Your HOA or your condo isn't just a standalone spreadsheet. It's tied to everything else within your community. That's your dues collection, your reserve study, your maintenance schedule, your vendor procurement process, your long-term planning. There's all sorts of other things that it's tied into. QuickBooks doesn't easily handle any of that. It just kind of sees budgets and transactions. Solume, on the other hand, connects the dots between your accounting and your actual community's operations. So when you log an expense for a new roof, for example, that automatically updates your reserve projections and your vendor history all in one place. So let's take a look at this, and we're going to jump into the accounting section of Solume, and I'm going to show you how this all ties together, from tracking your operating expenses to updating your reserves to making sure your reports actually mean something that your board can use. All right, so we're going to jump over into the platform here. So from a high level, you can kind of get a glimpse of all the most important pieces of information. This is just a dashboard that displays information that you might need to see from a high level. But we're going to start over here in the budget. So right off the bat, I want to draw your attention to the fact that you can copy over previous budgets. So if we want to create a new budget here, it's going to ask you, do you want to start from scratch or do you want to copy the current budget? That way, from year to year, you can have an idea of how things have changed over a period of time. If your budget, for the most part, doesn't change, you just can copy it over and update this year's budget, but keep last year's budget intact. So you can see here that you have your line items within a budget. You've got your GL categories. If you track it that way, you can determine if it's an operating budget versus a reserve budget, whether or not it's a revenue versus an expense. You can kind of see here the transactions, how many transactions are attributed to each line item within the budget. Of course, you can filter and sort things as well. So if you just want to see only revenue or only operating budgets, you can just filter and sort those things. Additionally, if you want to see what transactions are attributed to each line item, for example, in here we have, under the transaction count, we have 4 transactions according to the landscaping and groundskeeping. So we can just dial into that and see what's going on at this particular level. So your budget is exactly what you'd expect to see, right? This is just a way for your board to be able to forecast out over the year of what's expected to be spent and how much money you want to allocate to each of these line items. Additionally, we can track things as transactions. So this is exactly what you would expect it to be. These are the individual transactions that run through your bank account or your various bank accounts that would then be attached or attributed to your budget. So over here, depending on the size of your community, you can either add a new transaction as a 1-by-1, say that you only have 1 or 2 transactions a week, or if you have a lot more transactions, you can certainly just upload a CSV file and it will pull in all that information from your bank account. So here you can see every individual transaction that's run through this account, and you can see what budget it's attributed to. Here I want to draw your attention to the fact that you can attach documents to every transaction. So a document could be anything from an invoice, a receipt, a warranty, photos of the actual work that's done or the thing that was purchased. And you can include those attachments at the line item. So at any point, somebody can come in and see what is it that was paid for or purchased on this particular line item. You don't have to go hunting for that document or image or receipt or invoice somewhere else. It's attached at the individual level. There's other places that it can be stored as well, but that's the most straightforward place to put it. Same thing, you can filter and sort. So if you just want to see things that are expenses or revenue, you can do that. Or if you want to sort it based on what account, if you've got multiple accounts in here, or dates, etc. All of that works within there. But I also want to draw your attention to, you can generate your reports. And this, again, is going to look very similar to what you'd find in a QuickBooks, but we can come in and say we want to generate an itemized statement. So we want to see per budget line item how much money we have spent, say, in the last quarter. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say on the Paradise community, we're going to say from Let's start July 1st through yesterday. Let's generate the preview. So it's pulling up an itemized statement for this particular community. You can confirm and save that, and it will save it to your documents, and you could send that out or print it if you want to bring it to a board meeting or whatever. So now this is accessible to anybody that needs to be able to see particular line items or expense categories within the budget in a given period of time. Now, to some degree or another, all of this can be done within QuickBooks or really any other basic accounting platform. But where Solume is unique is that it also ties into all of the other features you need to easily access, all of these other things. So we're going to look at some of them and how they directly attach to your budget and your transactions and kind of your overall accounting. So the first one is your dues collection. Obviously, you're managing money here. Community members are paying their dues, whether they be on a monthly or a yearly or quarterly basis, whether they be per individual property or if everybody pays a flat fee. But from a high level, you can see here, according to this community's frequency, they're on every quarter. You can see how many homes have paid, how many have unpaid, how much money has been collected or uncollected. And you can see statuses based on homes. So if we wanted to see, for example, in this June 18th quarter, looks like 10 homes have paid and 94 have not paid. So we can dial over into that and start to get a sense of who is paid, who is not paid. Again, we can sort and filter so we can get an idea of which homes have paid or have not paid. Or if you click on an individual home or homeowner, you can dial in to see more information about this property. You can see, do they have more than just that month that's been unpaid? So we can cover the dues collection process in detail in another video if you want to look at that. But from a high level, you're able to access all the information you need about the dues collection. And of course, you can collect dues directly in the platform on the community member facing side. They can log in and see how much money they owe and pay those dues directly within there. And it will update this automatically that they have paid. But there might be community members that are historically behind on payments. So we could actually come over to here to communications. I'll hit on this very quickly, just do a quick run. We're going to do a type of communication. We're going to do a dues delinquency notice. We're going to send it to everybody who is currently delinquent in their dues. You can write whatever message you want in here if you have, just a template that you like to use, or you can attach a file here if there's some statement within your CC&Rs and your bylaws that dictate this type of communication. You can generate a preview and you can see what that looks like and send it out, and they will receive an email directly to them. Or if you want a letter mailed to them, we can certainly make that happen as well through here. So you can communicate directly with them about dues collection, dues reminders if you want to do that, among other things. So now let's quickly jump over to the reserve study. We've got plenty of videos on this particular feature by itself, but I'll give you a quick overview. And if you have any information that you want more about this, feel free to leave a comment or shoot me an email about this. But from a high level, you can kind of see some information here. You can see that there's a warning that pops up that this particular community is going to run into a $30,000 shortfall this year if something isn't addressed. By the way, the reason why that is saying in 2025 is because this particular reserve study was conducted in 2023. So you can see here, this is the number. If their budget plan or their funding plan doesn't change, this is what their financial projection looks like. It will continue to go downhill very steeply over the next several years. This is what their funding plan should look like if everything was perfect. So a community is able to come in and start to play around with these numbers and say in 2025, we want to do an increase of $10,000 in contributions to our reserve fund. And that's going to take it from $10,000, adding another $10,000 up to $20,000, which it's showing you that that's a $96, 96.15 per house. And you can start to see over time, if we want to increase these, a certain amount of dollars, you can see what that does to your community's reserves and start to get a glimpse of, okay, when are we going to have problem areas if we don't address something? But high level, you can kind of see here what items are going to cost. You're going to see how much time is left on that item. You can get a sense of what's due per year. So if we want to come down and see in, say, 2031, we have $115,000 worth of expenses coming up. We don't know what those are. So let's dial in and see a little more detail of what these things are. Okay, we have $107,000 silt removal from the lake. There's no budget line items or transactions or procurement requests attributed to this thing. So the reserve study feature is one feature that is not found on any other platform, all-in-one management platform that's available on the market. It is one of the things that makes our accounting and vendor procurement process really incredibly robust and tied to your community's actual day-to-day operations. So if we come over to your procurement, you can see here that it's telling us that there are items in our reserve study that don't have any open procurement requests attributed to them. So we can come in and open a new request. What type of request is it? We want a request for a quote. If you have a unique identifier, you can add that there. What's the title? What budget line item do we have this to? We're going to put it towards our reserve fund expenses, which you can see here that we have $75,000 allocated. We're going to type in internal notes. Again, these are notes that only you and the board will see, nobody else. External notes would be notes that you could include to the vendors that you select. You can attach files. So if it's something like a pool that needs to be resurfaced or a tennis court, lighting, you can take pictures, you can upload warranties, whatever it is that you want to include in that. If we click next, it's going to ask you what vendors you want to send this to. This list is going to be based on who you have in your vendors, what recipients, what contacts, etc. You can then send it directly, and it's going to send a vendor procurement request to those individuals, and you can track that all within here. So again, it's not that we're saying that QuickBooks is useless. It certainly is built for what it's built for. It can do some amazing things, but it can't do everything that a community needs. There's a lot more other functionality that is directly tied to your accounting and your transaction history. And so the reason why we say that Solume is a much better platform is because it can handle everything else that your community needs, everything else that your community needs to manage itself or to be managed by a professional management company. Solume is constantly updating and adding new features. So if you see something that is missing or something that you feel like would be helpful, please let us know. In other videos, or if you want to schedule a demo, we can go through all of these things in much more detail. But I just wanted to address the things that directly pertain to your budget and accounting features and give you a sense of something that's more comprehensive, more robust than just the simple pluses and minuses of your budget and your transaction history. There's a lot more that needs to go into this. And if you'd like to dive deeper into any of the accounting tools we've covered or explore other areas in greater detail, like the reserve study or vendor management or compliance tracking, we didn't even touch on some of the other AI features included in the software. But you can schedule a demo with us anytime by just reaching out on our website, solume.com, or sending me an email. I'd be happy to walk you through any of these features in more detail.